Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lampcast Podcast, episode 2 or 3.
What are we talking about today, Ryan?
Today we're talking
Ryan.
about exploiting streaming services and in the context of Migos Culture 2. And then it could open up to a larger discussion on being prolific versus shitposting in general, but we'll see how things go.
Imagine if it didn't lead to that conversation. Imagine.
No, I'm gonna bring it there, dude.
Imagine if it was just completely
Well,
about
I just want to talk about Lil B really bad is the thing.
Yeah.
So Migos released Culture, and it was a massive commercial success and a minor critical success, I would say. It got them. I think the public lexicon began to take them more seriously than the people who released Versace.
Yeah.
It had hits, Bad and Bougie, T-shirt. I personally will put on the album at the gym. I don't think it's a bad record. I think it's got glaring flaws, but I don't think it's a bad record. And so when Culture 2 was announced, I was actually vaguely excited. Like I would be for a Travis Scott release. Like at best, I'm getting some trashy trap music that I can kind of zone out to, because like I have an itch for that I don't think anybody else in the group does. Like I'll listen to every Project Gucci Mane drops.
Ryan, dude.
I'm just letting you know.
You tell us this regularly, and I'm never not surprised.
I thought El Gato the Human Glacier had some bangers on it.
Was that the one with like the best album cover of all
with the
time?
tiger.
Oh yeah, with the tiger and the iceberg with Gucci.
Oh my god.
El Gato, the Human Glacier is the single best album title.
Anyway, and then it was announced like days before Culture 2 dropped that Culture 2 would be an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Their opus.
yeah, and so some artists will announce an hour and 45-minute album, and it's, if not justified, then at least expected. Mark Kozlik, Kamasi Washington, any post-rock band, like, you know what I mean? There's an arena for that, but when you're a group who makes somewhat mindless trap music.
I mean, they are by and large a singles band.
Yes, very much so. They don't hold up on the deep cuts.
No.
All ass was not the highlight on Culture.
Speak for yourself, bucko.
And then Culture 2 came out, and it was like just a bloated mixtape that they called an album. There was the highlight of Stir Fry, which had a Pharrell beat that I thought was very good.
Stir Fry's a banger.
I think the ascending chord progression on that song is actually pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean Pharrell is a very talented musician, so
Yeah.
like it makes sense. I think Takeoff saying "Hello World, Hi" on Made Men is hilarious. I think Cardi B's feature on Motorsport is pretty mean. But like these highlights on Culture 2 are very few and far between the just endless repetition of the album. And it became very clear that Culture 2 was more of a business decision than an artistic decision, especially as news came out that they would not work on a song for longer than 45 minutes, usually getting it done in about 20 to half an hour. Which is just preposterous, because they have a rule at my school where if you want to cut a track, even if you have the beat made already and your lyrics written, you should set aside at least 3 hours of studio time. And granted, students aren't professional artists, so I'm sure professional artists can do what we're doing a lot faster, but 30 minutes is very clearly rushing.
I think it's also kind of important to note that Migos are not the first offenders to do this.
No.
Like Drake's More Life, I think, was a really huge example of like this new mixtape label that's being applied to things that really shouldn't be called mixtapes.
Well,
Drake
wasn't
called it a
playlist?
playlist. Yeah, he called it a
Playlist, that's what it was. Excuse me. Lil Yachty's album last year, that was like an hour and a half, right?
I don't think so.
Teenage.
Teenage
I
whatever.
can check. I can
I
check
thought
really
it
quick.
was
It was longer than it should have been.
an hour and 9.
Okay, so it's not as ridiculous, but it's still up
Just
there.
Odyssey, yeah.
Yeah.
I think obviously there are records that warrant being over an hour. To Pimp a Butterfly warrants being over an hour. But in the age of streaming, where people aren't buying the record anymore, and okay, so I mean this is going farther back, but when you produced a CD, it cost money to produce double albums. Like you produced a double album because that was the artistic vision you had for it.
Yeah.
Because it cost.
It
money
was
to
a
produce-
gamble, dude.
Yeah, it cost the money to produce twice the CDs for the album. And so like you go into this era where it doesn't cost any money to have more songs on a record, and it kind of breaks the rules, and I think people are realizing that now. Ray Shremmerd announced that their next album is going to be a triple album.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Speakerbox The Love Below, where
Oh, they each get a half.
they're each going to get a half, but then they're doing one together on top of that.
That's atrocious.
Yeah.
Oh my
it's,
god.
Here's
Here's my thing though, right?
yeah.
Like, no one. I understand that they're doing this to like beat the system, right? Like that's clear.
Yes, it's just
But-
to accrue streams.
But I just don't understand why people are listening to Emoji a Chain and Flooded, you know? Like I am shocked that anyone is going through the whole album when they could just put on like Stir Fry.
Right.
I don't understand why they're not be like a singles group and just
But-
kind of going in that direction.
Well, I bet if you
If-
asked them why they're listening to it, they would probably say like, I don't know.
Here's
like-
I think the philosophy is the more songs you have on an album, the more chance you have that a song will click with someone. And so
Okay.
each person will have different tracks of this 24 that they continuously go back to.
Mhm.
Or, like-
It was just odd. Like I went on to the album just now and like the deep cuts had like 4 million plays still. And I
Yeah,
just don't know how that's happening. Who is getting that far into this record?
I'm gonna make a weird analogy, but I think to listeners who kind of listen to music like kind of colloquially, Migos is a brand name, almost like Disney, where like you listen to you kind of put on, if you put on a Disney movie for your kids, unless it's like the first Pinocchio, you know it's probably going to be a safe bet that they're not going to be like traumatized or anything, right? So like, you put on
Yeah.
Migos, you know it's like you're probably going to like vibe to this like the shit that's on a Migos tape, and that's not to like disparage anybody who likes Migos. I'm just saying like that's probably the thought process they like that
Yeah.
if I was in that situation, that like be like they're gonna like, I'm a brand name, I'm a, you know, like I'm a part of this musical culture, you know, so I can, people
Right.
will listen to it anyway.
Yep.
I guess it's in a similar vein to how Future released the same album 3 times last year.
Well, Hendrix was different. It just wasn't different in a good way. But Christian's very right. We learned recently in my top-down of the industry class that the most valuable thing you have as a musician is your band name or your artist name that you go under, because people recognize it like a brand. It's like if like trying to market your music without a distinctive band name for people to see and be like, okay, I know what to expect out of this, is like Coke selling their stuff in just a white can with no logo on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good.
Oh, I'm crack open a nice can. Wow, that's weird. That's so funny.
It makes sense that Migos would just use their brand to push as much product as possible. And so I guess to backtrack, like the internet did allow people to post a lot more music than before, but usually it was in like a mixtape, a free mixtape, not profiting off of it type of way. Lil B had an 800 song freestyles mixtape once. Like
That's honestly, I feel like that should be
Just-
played in
that's just-
galleries. You know,
That's just impressive. That's just absolutely impressive.
yeah, I was talking to Becky once because I was gonna come visit for a weekend. I was like, we could start this Lil B mixtape when I show up, and we would not be done by the end. It's days long. But I think people began to realize. I think people began to realize that you could like take advantage of streaming services in different ways. Like very small unknown people found out that if you put a recognizable name in the title, people will find your stuff. Which is what, did we mention paparazzi and the photogs earlier?
Not yet.
Okay, so if you look up this guy Paparazzi and the Photogs on Spotify, it looks ridiculous even on face value. He has tons of albums all about famous people, and famous people's names are all in the title, and he has thousands of songs. Like, each album is 100 songs long, and
Like, the album covers are just pictures of him clearly taken with his
Yes.
phone, like, near a piano.
yeah, or his dog, or
Yeah.
and like they just go on and on and on. And it's very clearly because someone will type in the name of a famous person for fun and find his stuff. And then the hole gets even deeper when you realize that you go into his related artists on Spotify and they're all also bands of this same guy.
I think that's impressive. I
Yeah,
think it's
see,
funny.
And
don't know
all of
why
these
I-
bands also have thousands of songs because across all of these songs, this guy is making money off of Spotify.
The incredible thing is that like this guy is probably bad for the industry as a whole, but like I can't be mad at him.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
it's not
And
like,
so-
because it's not like it's still like his creative capital. You know, like he still made those songs. If you want to listen to like the one where he talks about how he doesn't like Karl Marx because he invented communism, that's fine. Because I think that's like I've never heard that in a song before. He's providing a service.
So yeah,
It's
the
all
related
just
artists
like
for
4 chords that
Paparazzi.
he smashes on a piano and just stream of consciousness like lyrics. It's so funny.
And so
What about-
the related artists are all just pictures of him in front of like different things. And so there's the athletic sports band, the ultra right-wing conservatives, the Farley Flower Band, those crazy college kids, the great weather song person, the paranormal song warrior, the singing film critic, the toilet bowl cleaners, Matt
At this
modern
point-
manly man.
But at this point, this man is not taking advantage of the system. This is his gimmick. This is what he does.
The odd man
This
who
is-
sings about poop, puke, and
Exactly. Who else is doing this? Who else is doing this?
that's what I'm. But
He's
people are
providing a
doing this.
service.
Like a lot of people will post like nameless ambient music, and shit
Yeah.
posted
Yeah.
across the
I was,
platform
I was
because that
yeah,
stuff
I was
makes
about
you
to say
money
those
on
people.
streams. And
yeah,
so
those
I think,
people who get put on playlists and stuff. Like who make like who are like fake artists and stuff.
And so I think like
That
as
shit's
time
whack.
went on, artists realized that the more stuff you have on a streaming service, the more chance of getting streams you have, and just the more profitable it is. And it's created this race to see how much you can put on a platform. Yeah, and so I don't know if like this will continue, and streaming services need to find a way to de-incentivize this. Though I don't know if they would because it makes them money too.
I feel like people are just gonna have to kind of not wisen up,
Yeah.
I guess.
I
But
think people are like people don't realize they're voting with their wallets even on streaming services.
yeah,
Well, the thing is eventually people just gotta stop listening. Like I don't think anybody in the world has the stamina. Like after like 40 Migos albums come out and they're all 3 hours long
Yeah.
and 60 tracks long. I don't
That's the
think
thing, though.
anybody's gonna be.
people don't have to listen to them. People can like throw 3 on a playlist, and that's
Right.
making Migos money.
I guess you're right.
I think this
I
contributes
just-
to the argument that people made when iTunes came around that the album is dying
Yeah,
because
That
it's
makes
not
sense.
about the album. Like I don't think people are starting Culture 2 and finish like I don't think people are starting at Higher We Go and finishing at Culture National Anthem.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
people are picking and choosing, just like they said, "Oh, the album's gonna die because people will only download certain songs on iTunes." I think people are picking and choosing what they want to hear based on who's featured or the title or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I don't buy into the whole death of the album thing because I think very much in our musical sphere, the album is very important.
I would wager that. I guess this is going to tie into the eventual conversation about prolific versus shit posting. But I think that like the thing is that like I don't know if the practice of putting as much music out there as you possibly can, it's not new, right? Like people have been doing it. Like I'd use like Guided by Voices as an example, where they were basically just like shit posting in a garage, and eventually it took off. Like
I think at the end of the day, what separates shitposting from prolificacy, is that a thing? Is that a word?
Sure.
I'm just trying to find the right tense. But anyway, I think like at the end of the day, it comes down to quality. Like Guided by Voices had like a 5-year span where they would release 2 albums a year, and all of them were at least semi worth listening to.
Yeah.
A couple of them were like perfect.
Well, what I
Um,
wanted to say.
But then they just kept going, and you run out of steam and you start doing the same thing, and it just becomes like, oh, why are you still doing this?
What I was gonna say is the difference between Migos like putting an hour and 45-minute album out, and like someone putting out like 6 records like within a 2-year span, is that Migos has already made it in the music industry, and they can make whatever record they want so long as it's like as long as it's like musically palatable.
As long as
The
it's
reason-
marketable.
Well, yeah, but like like
Yeah.
palatable. It's like as long as like the general public can enjoy it. As long as like Migos isn't putting out like a fucking like I don't know, like a harsh noise record or something.
Mhm.
Like they can do it. They totally have the means to make the record they want, and they chose to make a record that exploits the system.
Is Mark Kozlik prolific, or is he a shitposter?
Well, like,
I'm gonna say prolific because it's.
I don't know if shitposting is necessarily a bad thing. I think that, like, if it's... I think that that's not the way we should quantify it. We should quantify it as if it's predatory, or if it's, like from a genuine artistic standpoint. Because I don't think that... I think that you could totally classify the music that Mark makes as shitposting, but, like, I personally find, like, a lot of artistic merit in, like, a lot of it, even though there's no way I'm personally, like, capable of keeping up with it. And I don't
Right.
think Mark is
No,
putting it...
I wasn't saying that shitposting was a bad thing. Like, I don't think Lil
Okay,
B is a
yeah.
predatory shitposter. Like, we saw Mark Kozlik. Like, we saw that man sing about a cat on stage.
Astronomy,
for 10
astronomy.
minutes. The man meowed like a cat over his song. Like, clearly not everything that makes it onto record is the most golden of ideas. You know what I mean? And so I do think some people, like, sometimes the conversation of shitposting versus prolific, I think sometimes people base it on genre, and I'm not sure if...
I feel like it's mostly associated with ambient and hip hop. Hip hop now, especially.
Right, I think, like, hip hop...
But
gets
it does
gets
happen in, like-
labeled most, whereas, like, a singer-songwriter will get labeled as prolific. No, but I think it's based on perception of how much effort goes into the music. So even though...
That's true.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the underlying thing.
even
Like,
though
obviously, Lil
I
B's bass freestyles do not take a lot of effort.
Right, but like a basic folk song isn't complicated either.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what it comes down to. I think people are just more used to folk as a genre than...
Well, I also
Yeah,
I also think it comes with like the perspective of society saying like, wow, like I don't understand, like rap is crap, like it's just talking, like it's not that hard. Whereas like people have a hard, like every like kid in the 70s wanted to play the guitar, and like some of them would pick up the guitar and be like, wow, this is like I can't do this. So they have that perception that it's hard to play an instrument. Whereas like everybody can talk, so I don't understand why you can't just talk fast and know what, like, look, I'll rhyme right now, like time for a dime, you know? It might be just that perception, like people can't play instruments, everybody can talk, so everybody just assumes that it carries over to rapping.
Yeah, I just
clearly
think,
doesn't, but
I think that there just is still a bias against rap music. That's my
Yeah,
was my
absolutely.
oh,
hypothesis going into this.
I mean, it's totally, you're totally right about that, you know?
I don't. Yeah, I think it just comes down to the fact that our culture still has a bias against hip hop music.
Yeah.
That's what I thought coming into this.
Which is kind of crazy considering it has been at like the forefront of the pop culture zeitgeist for a solid 15 years.
Well,
Yeah,
we
I
will
also
probably
think-
see that change, but like...
Honestly, I don't know what it'll change into at this point.
No, like, we will probably see hip-hop become, like, a respected genre on all fronts. As
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that.
Like we're...
our generation, I think, respects
Exactly,
it as-
yeah.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
But like, you know, like, everybody has parents who are like, rap is crap, or like, wouldn't really let them listen to it. And
Yeah.
like the fact that generation is still there and doesn't respect it as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Here's the question though. I think it happens even in our like music community. Because would you consider MF Doom a shitposter or prolific?
Oh God, I would consider him prolific
prolific,
because
yeah.
he in 2003 and 2004, every single project kept at least either a steady pace of quality or increased it project to project. And then in the later years, when he did become less prolific, he spaced it out and the quality almost suffered. But that was just because he kind of had passed this kind of creative peak in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he probably just felt like, wow, I'm just at this point where I have the ability to make all this great music, so I might as well just get it all out.
Yeah, so I would say what I'm getting from this, at least, is that in the public, it's more of a bias against rap music, but then in our community, it has it to justify itself by either quality or content.
I would
Yeah.
I would say that those are the two most important qualifiers for me, and I think taking into account the context of it, because like what Migos did, that's like totally like a predatory shitpost. But like John Fahey, early 1960s, like putting out like records because like he had like a unique like style that nobody else had, and then he died poor. Like that's like that's like that. I think that's kind of more prolific because like even in spite of like mounting difficulty and like illness, like he still put out tons of music that is extremely influential in both the folk scene and the classical music scene. So yeah.
It like I guess this kind of goes hand in hand with Doom because Doom had so many different project titles and in like names and like it's still all under him, but like so like I guess going into my realm here, like so many 90s emo bands were just the same people under different band names, and like they.
Oh, I didn't even think about stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like, it's and most of the time the music is different, but they put so much fucking music out, and but like as long as the music was good and like, you know.
Also,
then I can justify it.
Well, I can't really speak for the emo bands, but on Doom I can tell that there is a noticeable like difference.
Oh,
from
yeah,
project to
yeah.
project, and like where like each project kind of justifies its own existence, whereas
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly.
like whereas for me listening to, I don't think Culture 1 necessarily justified a Culture 2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? Like I wasn't waiting for like what happened, like oh fuck, like like I didn't know what happened at the end when Culture got shot.
Yeah.
Like, I was waiting, like I didn't know if he'd come out from the hospital, but like I found out in Culture 2.
I think a more modern example of like what I feel Doom was doing is like just look at what Brockhampton did with Saturation.
I was
Yeah,
actually
like,
just about to say
3 albums, 6 months, and there's such a clear difference. But it
well,
still feels like
actu-
self-contained.
So one of the things I was about to bring up is that because I just recently watched that like 2.5 hour Saturation documentary, pretty much all the songs for the first three, the Saturation trilogy were made at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, when they were recording Saturation 1, they had 60 songs recorded. Like they were just going at it. Like they were just genuinely inspired people.
Yeah,
who
well-
just wanted to make music.
I'm not like an artist in the same level as any of the artists that we just mentioned, but like I have a ton of like songs that I write like all the time, but like I kind of just throw them to the wayside to be used later because I don't necessarily deem them good enough to be on like a record or anything.
There's a difference between making music because you want to and making music because you can.
Yeah, that's,
You know.
that's very. That's,
Mhm.
I guess
It's like
yeah, it comes down to it comes down to a discerning ear, I guess, to see who's worth
Yeah.
Yeah.
putting
I guess
that
I guess
much
intent
time.
is really behind this.
Yeah, because I would never call
Yeah.
To Pimp a Butterfly a shitpost, but To Pimp a Butterfly and More Life are the same length, basically.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
because it has a concept that spans that long.
Yeah.
I think this was a good episode, dudes.
This was a really good
Yo, Ethan,
episode.
dude, check the. Can we talk about the video I just sent you, Ethan?
For those of y'all listening at home, I checked my phone, and oh, a message from Christian. What could it be? Oh, a YouTube link. First review: the Nerf scooter, built-in blast.
Okay, can we talk about what Jason's doing in the Discord?
Can we
Pages.
set an outro real quick?
Oh yeah.
All right. Good night, guys. Thanks for watching the Lampcast podcast, episode 2 or 3.
Hopefully we'll keep to a schedule.
keep coming back, please, because we finally found out how we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna be great.
We're gonna we have like a set recording time, and maybe we'll even have a set release date time. I don't know if that'll work out, but
It won't.
no, that won't work out. So we have a set recording time, and then when it comes out will vary. But
Yeah, we'll
we
try.
record
We're trying
Wednesday,
this.
Wednesday nights now, and it seems like it's gonna work out. So
This is fucking crazy. This Nerf scooter.